The opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect the views of the Tampa Bay Arts and Education Network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Connecting with Kim here on Tampa Bay Arts and Education Network. I'm your host, Kim Droege. We're so glad you joined us today because every week we try to bring you information about people, places, and organizations to help you live your best life in our corner of paradise, and today will be no different. So before we get started, I would really appreciate it if you would like and follow not only the Connecting with Kim Instagram, Facebook, and X account, but Tampa Bay Arts and Education Network too, because we do really great job here of informing you about the show's guests, the topics, and of course my on-air wardrobe that is provided by the Spring of Tampa Bay. Their store is located at 4415 West Osborne here in Tampa, and I want you to go there and I want you to shop because the net proceeds from the store help support their mission. And what is the mission of the Spring? It is providing safe spaces and empowering services for survivors of domestic violence and their children. And they've been doing a great job for more than 40 years, so please support their mission. And you can also catch the audio of our show on Sun Radio 96.3 FM and on your favorite streaming platform Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon. So, again, so glad you joined us today here on Connecting with Kim. I have a great and a first-time, we love first-time guests, you know that. I have a great and first-time guest on my show, and I'm deeply honored that he took the time out of his busy schedule to be with us today. So let me introduce you to the Chief Judge of the 13th Judicial Circuit here in Hillsborough County, Christopher Sabella. Welcome.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here for the first time.
I know, and that means you have to come back, because once you're the first time, you have to come back.
I look forward to it.
I would love it. I'm so honored, truly. We always start the show the same way. I love my guests to share as much of their life journey as they feel comfortable with, because you never know when somebody watching and listening out there shares something in common with you. And we certainly want them to stick around and hear the rest.
Well, you may regret that. I always say I hate talking about myself, but then when I start talking about myself, I probably say too much.
No, you don't. You're so funny. I remember the first time I met you, and I was like, he's so funny, you know?
I try, but a lot of people tell me I probably shouldn't quit my day job, to be a comedian.
Well, take it away and tell us about yourself.
I was born and raised here in Tampa a very long time ago, and actually third generation Tampa. My grandparents were born in Ybor City.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my mom's side Spanish immigrants, and my father's side Italian immigrants, and they grew up on 8th Avenue in Ybor City. In fact, there's a family joke that my great-grandmother was a stripper in the cigar factories. Now, that job, though, was stripping tobacco leaves off of the stalks as they would come into the factory, so it wasn't what we
didn't think it was a stripper.
Yeah, and my great-grandfather was a lector who would sit and read the news and the newspaper to the workers in the cigar factory as they would roll the cigars. I came along a long time later and grew up here in Tampa, went to St. Lawrence Catholic School, and then to Jesuit High School. Graduated from there a very long time ago, and then ended up at Florida State University. So I'm a Seminole, go Seminoles. They're playing Alabama this weekend, and we've got high hopes for them to have a better season than last year. And then I went to Stetson Law School. My father was a lawyer here in town, and I remember also as I was growing up going to the courthouse with him. Many parts of that courthouse are the exact same as it was when I was a little tiny boy walking through the halls of the courthouse.
Yeah.
which is a kind of an issue I have in one of my bigger, in building a new criminal courthouse, because that one's so old. It's older than me. After Stetson Law School, I actually started a job with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. Cal Henderson was a brand new sheriff at the time and hired me. David G. was just a corporal, and Chad Chronister was a brand new deputy at the time.
Oh my goodness.
So I had the opportunity to get to know them and watch them grow up. I served as legal counsel under Cal Henderson and then with David G. I left briefly and went to the U.S. Attorney's Office and served as an assistant U.S. Attorney here in the Middle District under Charles Wilson, who was the U.S. Attorney at the time. But then Cal Henderson called me and made me an offer to come back that I couldn't refuse. I went back to the Sheriff's Office, and it was from there that I was appointed by Governor Jeb Bush as a circuit judge 20 years ago. So have been a judge now in the 13th Judicial Circuit for 20 years. Funny thing about when you become a judge, you go to a division where nobody else wants to be. So I started in family law, like many new judges do. And I'm having to learn how to be a judge and having to learn about an area of law that I hadn't practiced in ever. But loved it. There's a lot of great things in family law. But I moved around. I moved to juvenile. I eventually moved to civil and handled some big jury trials there. Products liability, medical malpractice type cases. And then I eventually ended up in the criminal division. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I didn't want to go. I wanted to stay in civil. The chief judge gets to decide where the judges will serve. And we move people around. And the chief judge at the time called and told me that I was going to criminal. And I said, Chief, is that decision final? And he said, no, you can resign if you like.
That was Figueroa. Was that Figueroa?
No, that
somebody
was before Figueroa.
Okay.
Manny Menendez.
Ah, yes.
Yes. So Judge Menendez, who had a sense of humor. He was obviously joking. But there was no choice in the matter in going to criminal. But I went to criminal. I ended up absolutely loving it. And spent the rest of my time in criminal until I became chief. But I served in a regular division for 5 or 6 years. And then it was Ronnie Figueroa, my former chief, who called me because Billy Fuente, who had been the longtime trial division judge and criminal, was retiring. And he asked me if I wanted the trial division. And I said, yes, absolutely, because I love doing trials. That was my favorite part, still is, actually, of being a judge, doing trials. And in the trial division, in the criminal side, they do all the high-profile, large, mostly murder and death penalty cases.
Right.
So I spent 5 years before I became chief in the trial division, doing a lot of high profiles on court TV a lot, law and crime, and the news media.
You are a media star already.
Well, I had a lot of, media attention in those 5 years that I was there. Some of our trials that were covered live stream had one point over 70,000 people watching at one time. And I used to joke, that's how many people are in Tampa Stadium watching Tom Brady.
Right.
So it was also a lot of pressure being with that type of people, because they also do comments and stuff while they're watching live stream. One of the high profile trials, actually, they did a 48 Hours episode on afterwards. So that role in the trial division resulted in a lot of, outside type of media, news, and court TV, and all of those things. And
which can be a double-edged sword, right? Double-edged sword.
It
As
can be.
Judge Ito found out.
It can be.
Double-edged sword.
You got a lot of people watching over your shoulder and criticizing, what you do. I remember the commentators and the talking heads at the desk on court TV. Mostly, thankfully, most of it was favorable to what I had done or how I had ruled. But it always made me nervous, watching after the trial was over, going back and watching them commenting. These are, longtime trial attorneys and stuff that are commenting at the desk regarding what's going on in the courtroom every day. So yes, it's a little intimidating. But I really, really enjoyed that, and I really missed that. Eventually, a little over 2 years ago, became the chief judge, so I can still consider myself a somewhat new chief judge, although they tell me the honeymoon period is over now, and you should have learned everything that you need to know, and that's not true. I'm learning stuff every day, and I really had no idea before becoming chief judge how much of the administrative side, what goes on, what I say, behind the administrative wall of the courthouse. A lot of judges don't realize.
First of all, let's help our viewers and listeners understand. How do you become chief judge? That's the first step. How does that happen?
It's an election process. You get nominated, and then you run, and a simple majority of the seated judges have to vote for you to win the election.
And how many judges are we talking about?
We were talking, at the time it was 68, and now we've grown by 2. We're now 70, and I believe we're the 3rd largest circuit in the state of Florida.
Okay.
But I always say, when I say that we are the 3rd largest, we are still the number 1 best, and that's because of our great judges and the great support personnel and all the staff that work in the courthouse at the 13th Judicial Circuit. So 3rd largest, but 1st best.
So now you become Chief Judge, and what was your biggest surprise when you became Chief Judge?
Just learning the administrative side, the budget, the going to Tallahassee, the lobbying type issues, just the administrative side that I had no idea. It's a whole different world. I often say now, after 2 years, I miss being a judge. I'm not a judge anymore. I'm an administrator. I deal with employment issues, hiring, firing. We've got, I think, almost 300 employees aside from judges. I've got 69 judges, and those 69 judges have JAs that work for them. But we manage kind of all of that, and the other employees, the due process employees, the court interpreters, the court reporters. There's just so much. It's a big, we've got almost a $50 million budget at the courthouse. And part of our budget comes from Tallahassee, where I have to go up to the legislature every year and ask for money, and yes, my hands out. And the county. The county is a large part of our budget, and they're 2 different fiscal years.
Yeah.
So that was a surprise that I had to learn. It's like, wait a minute, there's 2 different fiscal years.
How long do you get to be Chief Judge?
They're 2-year terms, and you can only be for the term limits, so a total of 8 years. Which Ronnie had come in before they imposed term limits. The term limits were imposed after he started, so he actually served as Chief Judge for, I believe, 10 years. From that point forward, it will be 8 years if I stay that long.
Well, so let me ask you a question, because you've been there 2 years now. So is it, after 2 years, do you go through that whole nomination process and voting process again? Or do people just say, no, we're really happy with Chief Judge Chris, so we're just going to keep it that way?
Well, it depends. It's up to them. They will open up a nomination period, probably 6 months, and they did previously. I was unopposed and started my 2nd term in July.
Okay.
So
it
I
just
got
happened.
past the
Okay.
first. It did. It just happened, and I just started my 2nd term. So I got past the 1st term without anybody saying I'm going to run against the Chief Judge. But it certainly can happen. It happens around the state. We've seen others where chief judges were unseated after their 1st term or their 2nd term, but certainly before their term limits were up because someone else ran against them. They just had a very close, heated election in Miami where the chief judge there was unseated by someone who ran against her.
We've discovered the most surprising part of becoming Chief Judge. What's the most delightful part of being Chief Judge?
Just the opportunity to represent so many fantastic judges that are so smart, that work so hard every day. And I sometimes think that, just like being here, I'm kind of the face of. I always say I'm not their boss. I'm not, because they are independent, elected constitutional officers. I have no investigative authority. I have no disciplinary authority. I can't discipline judges. That's another agency that has that, the Judicial Qualifications Commission. Just the opportunity to represent them in the community. One of my highest priorities is community outreach, coming to places like this, doing things in the community. And so sometimes I think that I'm the face of the 13th Judicial Circuit. And so representing them, those hardworking, smart individuals, and not just the judges, everyone else who works in the courthouse, but the opportunity to go out places like this and to say how hard they work and what a great job they do.
When a judge is newly elected or newly appointed, because you can be elected in Hillsborough County, you can be elected as a judge. You can be as a circuit judge or a county judge, and you can be also appointed.
If you're appointed, then you are up in the next general election.
Right.
So
you have to defend your seat.
You have to defend your seat.
But you can, or your judgeship, so to speak. But you can be appointed by the governor.
And that happens if someone doesn't finish their term, or if a new seat is created by the legislature, which had just happened. The 2 most recent county judges that came on were new seats created by the legislature the last session.
So when this happens, do you get to determine, are you the person that determines where these judges will serve?
Yes, and that's somewhat of a surprise to sometimes these judges, because they may be appointed into a seat where the judge was sitting in a criminal division or a civil division, and they presume that they're going to go into that division. And that's not at all the case. That's one of the main functions of the chief judge, when you look at the rules of judicial administration, is to determine where the judges in the circuit serve.
What's the process that you use to determine that? Because I think, I know a lot of your judges. So
Right.
In full disclosure, I know a lot of the judges. And sometimes, some of my friends, judges, have started out like in Plant City,
Yes.
serving, and then have come to Tampa. So
Yes.
how do you determine where they're going to go?
There is so much that goes into that process. First of all, I'm following what the two chief judges before me did. They send out an email soliciting preferences and asking people to list their top 5 preferences. This is my first preference, to be in a criminal division. My second preference, be in a civil division. Usually the last preference would be family law. Nobody wants to go to family law. But that's certainly one of the things that's taken into consideration. The seniority of the judge, how long they've been on the bench.
Okay.
And that's why a lot of the brand new judges will go to a division like family law, which is still a great division. All of the chief judges, including my lifelines, there are no bad assignments, but some are perhaps less desirable than others. And so the judges that have served 2-3 years in family law now have seniority, and they want to go someplace else.
Right.
So when we have a new judge coming in, well, that's where the opening is creating, because someone who had seniority elects to go or asks to go, and then we have an opening. We're going to put the judge with the seniority there. In fact, though, we take into consideration a lot of additional things, and I had a committee that created a judicial assignment recommendation that we look at different criteria. Have you served for 3 years in family law? How long have you been on the bench? A number of things. And ultimately, the chief judge has the final determination based on the best interest of the circuit. And sometimes judges might think it's unfair that, we put a judge in criminal or civil who didn't have as much seniority as a judge as them. But their background, what they had, what they brought to the bench might determine that that's a better position for them. We need a judge in criminal with some criminal experience rather than a judge who served in civil for 10 years and now just wants to go to criminal. So we try. It is the hardest part of the job is determining the assignments.
The other thing I was thinking about is the goal, because a lot of judges in the judicial circuits go on to become something above that. Right? They get promoted, they get appointed, they get
Appellate judges, they go to the district court.
Exactly.
Or
they go to the
Supreme Court.
Or the Supreme Court. So is there a desire to create a judge that is well-rounded, so to speak?
There certainly is, for a number of reasons. Those, as you've mentioned, if they have some desire in the future to go to the appellate court, where they're going to hear appeals from all the different divisions, from family law, from criminal, from civil, to have the hands-on experience at the trial level, which is what we are, the trial level, is absolutely beneficial to them, and I think increases their chances of being selected, because at the appellate level, that's not elected. That is purely an appointment, and it's an interview process. The nominating committee nominates names up to the governor. The governor has people that interview and look, and I think that if you're more well-rounded and you've served, that puts you in a better position to get an appointment to a higher level. But also, in the rules of judicial administration, it requires the chief judge to take that into consideration in the assignments, because if, for example, there's an emergency in another circuit, a hurricane hits and they get wiped out and they need assistance where we have to send judges down there, those judges should be prepared to do whatever it is they need.
Right.
And if we have judges that have only served in particular divisions and are not well-rounded, as you said, we could be at a disadvantage in sending a judge down to another circuit that's in need and doesn't have a well-rounded ability to fill whatever the need is.
So when they become a judge, and again, we know that they have to defend their judgeship in an election. Do they indicate to you or whoever that they have desires beyond the 13th Judicial? Do they communicate that to you, or how does that? How do they get to appellate? How do they get to Supreme Court? I know it's I'm one of those nerdy people that watches the Florida Channel, so I'm actually So I've actually watched the Supreme Court justice
interviews?
candidates
Yeah.
be interviewed,
Yeah.
and so I'm kind of curious how that happens.
When an opening comes, however that opening comes, a judge, sometimes the opening comes because one of the state court judges gets appointed to the federal bench. So now there's an opening. The governor sends a letter to the Judicial Nominating Commission to open up the applications for a period of time. And then they open that, and they would have to apply. Some private attorneys apply, some judges apply.
Okay.
And then they're interviewed, and then names are recommended to the governor's office, a list. They narrow the list down and recommended. But yes, a lot of the ones who are sitting judges who would apply for a higher level, the appellate court, will let me know that they are intending to file an application, or sometimes they let me know that they've filed the application before the list comes out, because I guess they don't want me to just see the list when it's published and that they're on it. So I would say majority, if not all of them, will let me know that they intend to put an application in when a seat opens.
I've been fortunate enough to have been invited over the years to robings. And I've got to think that that is a fun thing about your job.
I love it.
Because no robing is the same.
Right.
They're all different depending on who the individual is and who they invited to
speak, or to attend.
And it's so wonderful to be in your courtroom and have all of the judges sitting there behind you. I mean, that's got to be like a really great experience.
It absolutely is. I've only had a handful. I say a handful, I think maybe 5 in my 2 years. We've got 2 coming up. We have their 2 recent county judges that were appointed. They've just set their dates. One's in September, and I believe one's in November, where we're going to have, it's called an investiture.
Right, an investiture.
Yeah. Have you been to one that I presided over?
Yes, I have been.
Oh, okay. Yes, I try to make it, I mean, in my opinion, it is that judge's day. It's one of the greatest days in their career. It's like a wedding for them and their family who are there. And I say it's about them. And you're right, they bring different people to speak, and sometimes there's laughter, and sometimes parts are serious and tears.
Yeah.
But it's one of the greatest things that I get to do as a chief judge, because for 20 years I swore in new attorneys, law students who graduated past the bar, and I swear them, and now I get the ability to swear in new judges. So people who have been attorneys for 10, 15 years, and now I'm swearing them in as a judge. Is an absolute great experience, and we take lots of photographs.
I know.
And video. They're all on video. But it's a celebration. I often analogize it to a wedding.
Yeah. I think that's a good analogy, because it's such a special day in their lives that they get to share with their family and friends. We're just about out of time,
no. Wow.
I know. I told you it goes
went by
fast.
Quick.
But this is such an interesting topic, and there's so much to cover. So in the few minutes that we have left, what else would you like to share with us, our listeners and the viewers, about being the chief judge?
I do believe it's a very important role that stuff comes up. I was talking to a chief judge. We were at a conference, and he said it's like being a landlord. And I said, what do you mean it's like being a landlord? And he said, well, nobody calls to say that I have no roaches in my apartment or the air conditioning's working great. They only call when they have problems. This isn't working, that's not working. And that's true. I feel like I'm putting out fires a lot. But one of my biggest goals as the chief judge, however much longer I serve, is we are really in need of a new criminal courthouse. That criminal courthouse parts of it are 63 years old, which is older than me.
We're talking about Edgecombe.
Edgecombe is beautiful. Edgecombe, we're talking about the criminal annex across the Sky Tower.
Across the street. Yeah, got it. Okay, got it.
It's bordered by Twiggs and Kennedy.
Right.
The tower on Kennedy is 63 years old. The elevator in it is 63 years old.
Right.
They don't make parts for that elevator. So when that elevator breaks, we have to special order. They have to make parts.
Right.
And so the elevator is down for 6 months. And we have those issues when we have a lot of rain from the hurricane. There's water intrusion and leaks in that building.
Oh my goodness.
So it's very important. The Tribune did an article recently about the desire to have or need for a new criminal courthouse. So that has become really recently one of my biggest goals.
Your mission.
My mission to break ground.
And who gets to make that decision on whether or not a new criminal courthouse gets to be built?
The county commission ultimately, because they have to fund it. Pursuant to the structure in the statute, they're responsible. That's the part of the budget. The buildings and facilities are the responsibility of the county commission. And I have to commend, though, this county commission. They are doing a fantastic job. We have a meeting coming up next Monday. The ball is rolling. They even, in the community investment tax, they earmarked $150 million of the continued community investment tax for a new courthouse. Now, that's a fraction of what it's going to cost, because we would love to have a courthouse. My goal is to have a criminal courthouse that has everybody in it. The state attorney, the public defender. Right now, they're in different buildings.
Yeah,
the
you're all in
state
different
attorney
buildings.
is in the Pat Frank building. Yep. The public defender is in 701 Twigs. So and the clerk's office. The clerk's office is spread out. And all kind. I would like to build a big enough courthouse, tall enough and wide enough that we can have all those agencies in the same building. And I think that it'll be much more efficient. And hopefully we won't have the leaks and the broken elevators. But I invite people to go down and look at Orlando, the building that they have there. It's like 26 stories, and it's absolutely beautiful. And it has all of those agencies all in the same building.
Well, Chief Judge, we are out of time, but
no.
I can't tell you how wonderful it's been to have you as a guest today on Connecting with Kim.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you.
You have to come back because
it was easier than I thought. I was nervous.
No, there's no reason. This is easy peasy on Connecting with Kim. Yeah, we love all of our guests, and we want to make it's all about you shining. Wow. And you did that, but I think we have more ground to cover. So
absolutely,
you have to come
I would love to come back.
You have to come back. So if you're just joining me now on Connecting with Kim, and you have to go back and watch the whole interview because it's fabulous. We had Chief Judge Christopher Sabella, who is the Chief Judge for the 13th Judicial Circuit here in Hillsborough County. So that's all we have time for today. Another shout out to my sponsor, the Spring of Tampa Bay, who provides safe spaces and empowering services for survivors of domestic violence and their children. So please support their mission by shopping at the store. Come back next week for another edition of Connecting with Kim, helping you live your best life in our corner of paradise. So long.